we up to now? Episode 7
Yeah.
or 6?
Yep. 7. Yeah.
All right. Well, wow, we've done 7 of these. Welcome to episode 7 of the Nova Files podcast. I'm Peter from Medallion Comics, and today I'm joined with Bob.
I'm Greg from Sierra Nova Comics.
And I'm Hector from Newly Studios.
All right. So before we hit recording, I said we're going to talk about this. So yes, freaking COVID and TCGs. So what's been going on? Just Greg, oh my God, I can't talk this morning. Ian, you're saying how you went to Walmart and it just looks like everything's sold out, right?
I'll change my name to Ian if you want. That's fine. I'll be Ian today.
Jesus, coffee.
Yeah, no, I went to Walmart and I just go there to shop. But I don't really like buy Pokemon cards, but I was like, for some reason, I was like, let me see if they got some Pokemon cards. I kind of want to like mess around with this shit.
Yeah.
And I went over there and like everything's like sold out, like Pokemon cards. There was like other stuff too, like Magic cards. Like I think there was a few Magic cards left, but there was a lot of stuff just like completely done.
So what's been going on lately is that since COVID has been going on, a lot of people are buying stuff from home. One of the most popular things that is on the market right now are TCGs, especially stuff like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! So a lot of people are like, oh, I really like Pokemon back in the day. Let me get some cards. And what's going on, because you have this nostalgia for it going on right now, you have a bunch of older individuals who buy up everything in droves and then resell it at much higher values.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just on Facebook Marketplace randomly.
Yeah, they're scalpers. That's what's going on. People are hardcore scalping Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Magic cards right now. Like you go into the stores, like everything's sold out.
There's a tote that I saw on Facebook Marketplace, and it's like a giant tote, and it says like 40,000 Pokemon cards. And I was like, why?
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I don't know if you guys ever played TCGs or collected them in the past.
I've
played Pokemon for sure.
I didn't play Pokemon, but I've like collected the cards.
Yeah. If you have any of your OG base set Pokemon cards, look them up. A lot of them are worth quite a bit of money these days.
Oh yeah.
My girlfriend uses one as like a bookmark. So.
Yeah. Here's the thing, especially if you have an OG Charizard, those things can go like, I think one sold like for $10,000 recently.
Yeah, I'm doing a Fakeamon project where I'm basically like making Pokemon cards with like fake Pokemon for this client. And yeah, looking up those cards, like the one that I saw was like 4,700 the Charizard first edition holographic, that was the one I saw on like Etsy.
Let me tell you something. I have a first edition Dark Magician Girl from Yu-Gi-Oh, the first version of it that came out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, shits and giggles, I'm gonna look it up. It goes for up to 1,000 and more.
Nice.
I literally had, I was considering selling it, but I figured I'd hang on to it for now. And some guy made me an offer of about $1,200 for that and like 2 other cards.
Mm. So, are you selling it or are you hanging on to it?
No, I'm hanging on to it for now because considering these values right now, oh my God. Like right now, I like having these things, but Lord knows 10 years from now when I have kids, I'm like, hey, let me just get rid of these pieces of paper.
Right.
But yeah, no, so like Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, Magic, there's a huge nostalgia boom for it. Therefore, there's a high demand for it. And therefore, there's a bunch of not the best individuals taking advantage of it.
Right.
Like, I think they had the same problem at McDonald's because McDonald's was having this promotion with Pokemon cards. And they had to make a limit per customer because people were abusing it.
Yeah, of course. Like any system is going to have people that are going to try to take advantage of it.
Oh, for sure. But we're seeing it like heavily right now with COVID.
I think it's funny that there is a McDonald's somewhere, I forgot where, and they're offering to give people iPhones to work there.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm hearing about this. Yeah. Well, what's going on right now with COVID is that people are making more money on unemployment than they would be going to those low-end jobs.
Yeah.
Right.
Actually, I had leverage for my job, so it's really funny. So I was making the least at my job. I'm still making the least, but me and my friend are now going to be making the exact same. But my boss lied to me and said that, oh, you talked to the payroll lady? And I'm like, never talked to her in my life. He's like, oh, well, you said that you were going to quit if you didn't get $17 an hour. I was like, well, that's true. And he's like, oh, well, yeah, no, you'll get $17 an hour. I was like, oh, yeah, there you go.
How long ago was that?
Just like this past week. Like, he's like, he definitely lied, like on the phone to me. He's like, oh, you talked to her? I'm like, never talked to her in my life. But somebody said something. But thanks for whoever said.
Yeah, right.
I'm human resources, but even I know, like, the whole like not telling people what your salary is.
Oh
That's not a stress. That's a demand of the corporation, so they can better control people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But when
it's
I
fine,
have when we actually have like Sierra Nova as like a whole thing, and like if I would never tell an employee to be like, oh, you don't tell somebody like your pay rate. Like, I could care less if you did that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're all roughly the same, anyways. But I've been hearing, because here in Montreal, up until a few weeks ago, I was heavily recruiting for warehouse jobs, and they were all like paying minimum wage. Minimum wage here is like $13.50, and unemployment, you're basically closer to $15 an hour. So why would anyone want to go work and risk COVID when unemployment pays them more? So now all these companies that were only offering minimum wage are upping their base salaries.
Yep.
Which I think is, it's for the best. Like, especially like I said, working in recruitment and human resources, I see how little people want to pay other people, and I don't like it. And then, like, considering now that you got COVID and it's requiring people to start increasing salaries and increasing these things, it's doing good.
You know what it is too, is like, it's not just pay. It's like, like I could stay at home and be with people I care about and like feel appreciated, or I can go to a job where I'm, working my ass off and I don't really feel acknowledged or appreciated, like, and, I'm at risk of catching COVID and all that kind of, so like, it's just the risks and the benefits don't outweigh like, what you're getting on the other side, and, there's been tons of people in my network that, kind of reignited passions that they've had for a long time, because of this, because they had an opportunity to like, be on unemployment for a while. And it's like, well, what am I going to do to occupy my time? And, now they're doing their hobbies. Now, so many people have like started up their own little side businesses in this meantime and found other ways to try and make income and stuff. And they're probably more fulfilled doing that kind of stuff, than going to a job that they just have to do to maintain and survive. So I think it's definitely taught our society a lot about like the value systems of our workplace, and like how those things operate, and they don't really fulfill us to a certain degree. We would rather be, kind of free to do what we want to do. And obviously the reality is we're going to go back to it. Like, we're going to go back to a normal work day and normacy at some point. But I think it's definitely going to be a different workplace once we get back.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hector. The name right this time. Actually, to swap the topic like back to more like geek related stuff. So a big topic that's been going around, I don't know if you guys have been seeing it, is that the entire Western comic book market was completely outsold by manga, like recently.
Oh yeah, they're killing it.
Yeah.
And there's
because we kind of talked about. Sorry, so you were saying, Greg.
Oh, people were saying that manga isn't even like comics. Like, so what? Yeah.
Well, I like to consider it this way: manga is a series, and comic books are magazines. Like, I've talked about this before, and like I'm gonna bring it up again. My problem with the comic book industry is we're reading the same stories, just with a new coat of paint.
Mm-hmm.
And not even the fact like we're like, oh, these are all the same tropes, or these are all the same. No, they're literally the same characters, just going between different writers, and it just. Spider-Man, as an example, I use Spider-Man. When I started reading Spider-Man, it was like around the Secret Wars. All right, no, not Secret Wars, Secret Invasion. So I read from that period, sometime after Brand New Day, which I hated Brand New Day. I hated the whole concept. Like, it's like it's magic. We don't gotta explain shit. So I started reading from then until now, and it's gone through a few different writers, but since in that time frame, and the supporting cast completely changed. The scenario completely changed. You had the whole like superior Spider-Man storyline. Like, nothing ever sticks. And within these like 10 years almost, I'm still reading the same characters. Like, he's still the same age. Like, the world definitely develops, but you never get a sense of finality. A good example of this is there's no hero's journey. When you're reading these comics, there's no beginning, middle, and end. These are the day-to-day lives of crime fighters. And because they don't age, they don't go through arcs. They don't go through anything. Like a good example of that would be something like Invincible. Invincible has an arc. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's a comic. It's a superhero comic that has a beginning, middle, and an end.
It's a story.
Yeah. Batman, Spider-Man, Superman, they do not have beginning, middles, and ends. They have beginnings. Sometimes they have a middle, and then they go back to the beginning with reboot after reboot. So what's going to happen? Your hardcore audience eventually is going to start losing interest.
Yeah.
And what's manga? Manga goes through different stories. It's like, and I think like as indies, it's something we would appreciate way more. What happens with manga is that every so often people pitch ideas. You have magazines that have like a collection of issue ones, more or less, of first chapters. The ones that start doing really well get picked up and continue. And eventually those get put into collections. And eventually that series gets turned into a manga, and then merchandising, and then video games. And what happens? The series ends. And then you know what we do? We don't beat that dead horse. They go to the next series. So in the last few years, we've had Bleach was a big thing. Naruto's still a big thing. It's on its sequel series. Hunter x Hunter, Demon Slayer, which was the biggest opening anime movie of all time. My Hero Academia, which is actually a superhero story.
Yeah, and it's a damn good one too, which is great.
I still have to watch that.
Exactly. So you're going from the new one hotness to the next hotness. And that's what I said. I figure like as indies, that's kind of like what our scene is. Like you get a good indie book, it's gonna run for a certain amount of time, it's gonna end, and then you get the next good indie book.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna say, hey, you know what? I really like The Walking Dead. Oh man, like you can buy the collection of The Walking Dead here.
Right.
Really good.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing about like movies too, right? I think the success of movies is that like they are a single moment in time, and they allow you to get closure. Like, you know what I mean? Like even when there's a cliffhanger, there's still closure to it. It's like the movie's over. Like you can't watch anymore. Like that's it. So you have to ponder on, you have to think about all the different concepts that were inside of the piece of film, and think about like, man, how is it going to move forward? How, you have some level of like speculation, and it kind of lets your like imagination wander and appreciate the things that you just seen. And that's exactly what I think you're talking about, like story wise, is like you have a beginning, middle, and end, and then it ends, and it allows you to kind of like grieve the process of grieving. Like I don't get to see that world anymore, but it changed me so much because of these things, and like in a comic, you might have some pieces of like information or like profound things that you have, that come up. Like there's a couple like Deadpool things that I've seen that was like about suicide prevention and stuff like that. So it's like, yeah, like you get those things in the comic books, but then you also don't get that, like, it doesn't continue on. It doesn't leave you with like more thoughts. It's just that one moment in time, and then they move on to something else. And then, there is no continuity when it comes to like, how a series progresses. Yeah. How something progresses, even one issue to the next might even be completely different, or months, flash forward, or, so you don't get like a lot of continuity. So yeah, I think especially with indies, that's our bread and butter, is being able to be storytellers, and people do appreciate stories. And I think as time goes on, it's going to be a bigger marketplace, because people are appreciating stories more and more and more, and not just the flash, I mean, like, not the Flash comic book, but like, it's not just about flashy covers. It's not just about flashy artwork. It's really more, there's more depth to it.
Exactly. And, like it can be done. Like look at the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because they're live action characters, they have to have a finality. Like, look, the story
age. Yeah,
exactly. The age, everyone grows up. We're done with Iron Man's story. We're done with Captain America's story. And now we're moving on to other characters. Like eventually they're not going to be able to use Thor. They're not going to be able to use Hulk, and they're going to have to focus on nothing but new characters. And that is so contrary to what they are now. It's like if the cinematic universe was anything like the comics, we'd be nearing a reboot.
Yeah, we'd be seeing a new Tony Stark, and like their deaths would be set up to another version of them. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Exactly. We'll be introducing the time displacement bullet.
Exactly.
That is my favorite retcon device. Oh god. It was just funny. They used it on Batman and Captain America. I can never get over that.
Well, these two companies, like the big two, they've definitely done the same things, just in a different way. You know what I mean? Like over and over and over, the same kinds of things, same kinds of stories. You know, they even have similar character types when you really think about it. You know, so there's very few unique characters that exist between those two giants.
Exactly. And yeah, let's be honest, there's always going to be comic book tropes, there's always going to be stuff you're going to see in new character designs, like I guess you can call it the Spider-Man mask design, where it's like the big eyes that
Big
are
eyes, yeah.
animated, like no face.
Yeah.
It makes drawing easier.
Oh, the Batman cowl, you know what I mean? Like that's shown up in numerous different characters. Hitman, you know what I mean? Or was it Hitman? No, Big Daddy from Kick-Ass, like he's looks very Batman-ish. So yeah, you'll see that over and over.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm totally all for comic book tropes, like if they're done well. But the fact of the matter is, because we're always using the same characters, we never get to explore things. And because the comic book market is only pushing those two big companies for like 80% of it, we don't get to see on a public side like a good collection of indies. Like,
yeah,
you don't have a comic book equivalent of Shonen Jump,
right?
Where let's say you take like the first chapter worth of each new comic book and put it in a magazine, and that way you buy the magazine, you read it, you enjoy it, and then you're like, oh, you know what, I'm buying the magazine, but I'm really buying it for like these 3 stories, right?
It's like a tester though. You get to get a variety of like, hey, I might like this or might like that, and you get a little bit of everything.
Exactly. And they're like thick books. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen a Shonen Jump magazine.
Yeah, they're like
yeah. I think it's also them, it's because they use cheap paper, everything's in black and white, so it's easier to produce.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, we need a comic book equivalent of that if this market is going to survive in the long term, because I don't see a lot of younger people getting into comics as they are now. Like, let me repeat that. Getting into Marvel and DC as they are now. Like, I can see somebody picking up The Walking Dead. I can see somebody picking up Invincible. Give me some other like big indie books that came out in the last 10 years.
Seer Chronicles.
We're getting there.
I mean, Fable is really great.
Yeah.
Man.
Saga.
Yeah.
They're making a show for Paper Girls, I think.
Yeah. Kick-Ass was a comic book, and I got a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the whole like the Millerverse, they're pretty independent and they've been fairly successul.
Exactly. And these are like self-contained stories. You can find like book 1, 2, and 3 at your local like Barnes and Nobles. You can go pick it up, you can read it and enjoy it, and you finish it. And then, like, you know what? I want to read something else. And you're not bogged down like, oh, I'm looking at the Marvel and DC section. They're just like all a bunch of random runs. I have no idea how anything connects into each other.
Honestly, that's actually like the biggest hindrance for me going into a comic book store and buying stuff is like, I don't know where to start. You know what I mean? Like, I have no idea which one is going to be better than, or which one I'm going to like more. There's a 50 Spider-Man, titles or covers that are like, chilling in this one section, and same thing with every other hero that you see. So it's really hard to like decide, especially like if you really don't have a great, level of context, like you haven't been reading comics. It's such an like imposing kind of, thing to just walk in a comic book store and just like pick out a comic, thinking that you might like it.
The Marvel comic that I got was Spectacular Spider-Man. It's the story arc of when like Eddie Brock becomes Venom. That's it. That's all I have. And like I got all 5 of those, or 4, or however many I have of that. But I like indie just because, like, for our stories, like mine that I wrote, like there's actually like a beginning, a middle, and there's going to be an end. Like,
yeah. Not to be all self-promotion, but I'm just saying, like, I actually remember the first time I went to comic book store as a kid. I think I was like 10, 11, something like that. I'd been watching a lot of Spider-Man on TV, a lot of X-Men. And you know what? I wanted to go read comic books. And I remember walking into the store and seeing all the books, like the higher price value books on the wall all the way at the top. And I'm like, oh, I don't even know where to start. Like, issue like 100 and what?
Right.
Yeah. And like I remember I picked up that's when the Clone Saga was going on. And I remember picking up a book and oh cool, who like oh there's a Spider-Man clone called Ben Riley and ooh the cover is super shiny. And but I remember like reading it and just feeling so disconnected. And then like when I got back into comics years later and I found out what happened with the Clone Saga, I'm like, oh wow, it's like the comic must have changed a lot since then. I'm like, nope, it hasn't.
Right. And yeah, and I think like for me personally, comics like the big two comics, even I like Image a lot actually. I think they're pretty unique and they're actually trying to like promote indies and move indies forward and things like that. So I'll leave them out of the conversation in this regard. But like for me, it's like the big two are definitely about the artists and like the artwork. Like I don't really like dive into any one storyline because again like I feel like it's just going to be disconnected. It's like a multiverse of different things and like I want something that's has more continuity and stuff like that. So for me it's just like looking at those artists as an artist. That's what I do. Like I look at these other artists and I'm like, wow, these guys do this so well, do that so well, and wow, their inking style is great or the color here is amazing. So I break it down in more of a critique fashion. But for me that's what it's about. Like it's really not about the stories at all. I would prefer reading a smaller pressed book because I know those people are trying hard to make that story work. They're really putting all their effort into it.
That's what I'm getting at. Like you're an artist, like you would appreciate the art in those books, but I'm talking about the everyday reader.
Right.
Like,
right.
I don't notice line work. Like I'm not an artist, I'm a writer. So when I read a book, I read it for the story or the narrative.
Sure.
So we'll see. Like obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, but most people who will be reading it are not going to be heavy on art. They're not going to be understanding of those things.
Consciously probably not, but subconsciously yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Art is definitely a deep thing. Like it's a uniquely human thing. We all attach to it in some way.
Oh, for sure. I remember I really loved Ultimate Spider-Man. I adored it.
Yeah.
And I remember somewhere in like the close to the 40 or 60 mark, like they swapped artists, and I obviously noticed.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like everyone like we know what we like. Like I like this more than this, but we're not gonna point out the variety of it. Like I'm reading this book because it looks cool.
Right.
That's really true. That's a part of it. But looking cool and like very well done, it's hard to tell.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes maybe you like more of a cartoony style, maybe you like more of a serious style.
Oh sure, yeah. There's different approaches to everything, so it's like the change or just the differences in approach. It really there's a lot of avenues of success when it comes to artwork and writing as well. So it's kind of the same thing. Just there's a lot of creative avenues and stuff, and it's just about what works for that specific reader. But yeah, I think artists change for some people do actually like make them lose interest in a book. Like my cousin is a huge comic book reader and he's a writer as well, and he definitely still tunes into the artwork as well. Like if a book changes an artist, he's like, yeah, I don't know if I like this anymore, and he'll just pick up where that artist, like if that artist is on another book, he'll just go to that book and he'll just continue following that artist. If there's a great writer too, like paired with them, and typically that's the case. So
yeah. Like our Seer Chronicles, well, all of our comics are going to be this one artist that did ink and scales and stuff, and issue 2 as a different artist. So there's definitely a change.
Yeah, and I'm all about Adam Fields though. Yeah. I want Adam to just do all that.
Yeah, he sent me the design of like what my one character John Benson looks like, and like this is what I wanted him to look like in the very beginning. Like the design that Dan did was kind of like a copy off of the first guy, Ricardo, and I'm just like, that guy doesn't look how he's supposed to look. But now it looks like and I can't wait to see him actually draw it all. But Aaron Datwin from Catalyst Comic Studio, he actually, this is one of the comics.
Oh, Tilt, yeah,
Tilt, and he actually plays on like the tropes and everything, like on purpose. He does it because he made Tilt. I'm pretty sure he made Tilt because he's making fun of Superman.
Mm-hmm.
So he breaks the fourth wall like Deadpool, and then he just makes fun of Superman to like in like just superhero stuff in general.
Right.
When he's breaking the fourth wall, like one of the first things he does in the first issue is he's on a plane eating a sandwich, like he's on the wing. And I guess somebody came up to them at a Comic-Con, like when it came out, and they're like, well, he wouldn't be doing that. Like, he wouldn't be able to be sitting on a wing. He's a superhero. That's the thing you're getting away. Like, what? That's what's taking away from the story. And then when he's like flying down from the plane and he's about to land, he's like, all right, here's superhero landing, and then he like smashes to the ground.
Yeah.
So he like plays on all those tropes, and I just love that. But yeah, I like indie way more. So like I don't think I would ever probably get Marvel or anything ever again. I would get Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like The Last Ronin. When all that's done, I'm gonna get that.
Dude, the Power Rangers series is actually pretty badass too.
I read the Power Rangers Ninja Turtles crossover. Surprisingly, very solid. Like, kind of small spoiler. One thing I love how they do with their crossover is that their Megazord is damaged, so they used a size modification beam to make Metalhead replace one of the Zords. So it was the Metalhead Turtle Megazord.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
and I love Dan Mora too, and he was at the helm for that as the artist for a long time. So like, he's amazing, man. Dan Mora is insane.
The art on those books is super good. And the thing I like about it is that I remember they made a trailer for a possible Power Rangers cartoon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they made a trailer for that, but Saban or Toei were completely against the idea of those characters being animated.
I can get that.
Yeah.
Honestly, it kind of kills, like, if you can do this in an animation, there's a lot more to do. Like you can play with reality a little more in an animation. And I think the key aspect of the nostalgia driven kind of like Sentai like thing about it is it's based in the real world. And it kind of has those limitations.
Yeah, but they got a green light for making a comic book, and the comic book, like, brings back the original characters. And once you do storylines, it lets you like revisit stuff from the OG series, view the characters in new ways, and it's very entertaining, especially for somebody who grew up on it.
Yeah. The whole Draken thing, the whole like,
Oh man, that was so.
It's a great storyline, and it's like they tap into like the multiverse theory, and then now you get kind of like this feeling of, okay, this is where comics and what I know from the past of Power Rangers, it kind of meets in the middle. It's just a great idea to honestly to sell comics. I mean, when you think about it, tapping into the nostalgia factor and just bringing it into a comic format, and yeah, it's brilliant.
No, dude, when it comes to comic books, you gotta go multiverse theory. Like, it's always the best thing to do. Like, it's like, if you want to tell self-contained story about like different ways the characters could have done it, like, I love the what ifs, I love Elseworld stuff. That's always, because that's self-contained and enjoyable. Because like, oh, I've seen like this what if version. Like, you can buy Superman Red Sun, like the series, and enjoy it. You can buy the movie and enjoy it. You can buy The Dark Knight Returns and enjoy it, because they're all self-contained stories, and they're created as such to be like a 1-2 issue.
One shot. Yeah, it's that's it. Like you said, it's a beginning, middle, and end. Yeah. It's satisfying.
I watched that, like how they were made, or shows, or whatever it was, on Netflix a while ago.
Good for you, Greg.
And one of the things,
what series was it? Sorry.
I think it's like how it was made, or
okay.
Like there was a movie one, and then there was one about like shows, and Power Rangers was on that, and I forgot what the actual name of it was, but they actually showed like how Power Rangers were made. I didn't know how it was made when I was a kid. I was just like, oh, this is cool. But now I know how it was made. Yeah, they took
like a legacy.
Yeah, they took the Japanese stuff, and then they like they like implemented the like American actors, and it's weird.
Yeah.
They're like, we had to act like there are people where they actually weren't. So when they're like fighting, I was like, oh, that makes more sense now.
The long and short story of it is that those were the Japanese series.
Yeah.
And Ham Saban was like in a hotel, I think in like Japan or somewhere, and he was seeing the Japanese version of it, like, oh, this is really good. So the first thing they tried to do was bring it here and subtitle it and dub it. It didn't do well. So they just took all the action footage, left that in, and made their own like footage and swapped it in, and that's how
Americans. There's got to be an American audience. We need white people in this show. Come on.
Yeah.
It's not going to work without white people.
So thank you everyone for watching to our like 3 viewers, but we love you all.
There's like, well, on YouTube, yeah, but like a lot of people listen to this podcast, like
Awesome.
all the time. I don't know what
Really?
whatever we talk about, or mostly what you talk about, is like people want to listen to that. There's like 14 people. Like we don't get that usually for people, for like other podcasts.
So like audio, right? Is what you're saying?
My face right now, I'm actually kind of happy people are like listening to my insane ramblings.
I think they like listening to 80s and 90s stuff more than just our comics and stuff.
Right.
Like I said, this is a general form geek topic, man. Whatever comes to mind. Like last week was what we talked about last week. We talked about Skeleton Warriors.
Talk about Lord of the Rings and
Toyetic.
and yeah.
Meaning of the word toyetic.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks for having us or having me. I've been trying to get on this for a while. It's just Saturdays are usually really difficult. But
Thank you for
yeah.
joining us, Ian, or is it Hector? Hector.
I mean, whatever you want to call me, I guess.
Sorry about that. Like Ian's usually here, and I just got mixed up for a minute there.
It's all right, man. He's like your guy. He's your partner on this. You're missing your partner, so used to it.
We're talking about a Prison Break story set in hell, which will be really fun to write.
That's pretty dope. Yeah.
He's actually working on this like monster anthology that I just was asked to do, and it's 4 pages, and I didn't think I would write. Like I would have not been able to write that if I didn't watch like Godzilla versus whatever King of the Monsters.
Let's put it this way: monsters, demons, that stuff's always fun to write. There's always somebody's gonna be into that.
Yeah.
I had to make my own monster, so it was like it's half polar bear, half penguin. So
Get ready for that, world.
Half polar bear, half penguin. So that's.
And
I like
he's like, "What do you
penguin
want
bear.
this to look like?" And I'm like, "That's literally up to you. Like, I don't care."
Penguin bear.
It honestly sounds like, like an Avatar creature, like the last Avatar or the last Airbender, like they
Yes.
just kind of mixed creatures together,
Like a turtle ducks.
Yeah.
It's like, and I remember it's like, yes, we're gonna be having a party for his bear. Oh, you mean like the bird bears? No. Oh, you mean like the duck bears? No, just
a regular bear. Yeah, that was the only regular animal in that whole series too.
Yeah.
They had like saber-toothed moose. Like what? Yeah. That was incredible. But yeah, all right. Thank you guys for watching, and thanks for having me, Peter.
All right. Have a good week, everybody, and stay safe.
Later, Greg. I'll see you tomorrow, bro.
Bye.